All right, thank you. So I've been informed that now we have quorum, both of people here sitting in the council and online. So thank you for being on time. With that, I will pass it to the co-chair.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you all for being here on the second day of the LDCF-SCCF meeting. We'll now commence agenda item 4, and I'd like to invite Dorji from the GEF Secretariat to present document GEF/LDCF-SCCF.38/04 for financial year 24, the annual monitoring review of the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. Over to you, Dorji. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Very good morning to everyone, and it's my real honor to present document GEF/LDCF.SCCF.38/04 fiscal year 24 annual monitoring review reports of the Least Developed Country Fund and Special Climate Change Fund. Let me just. This review describes the performance and the results of and the lesson learned from the portfolio of projects and programs financed under LDCF and SCCF that had begun implementation on or before June 30th, 2023, and that were under implementation during at least a part of fiscal year 2024. Right. I am trying to. Apology, this little glitch in running the slide. I would continue. Okay, to begin with, the key messages that's coming out of this review is that the active LDCF and SCCF portfolios are making a satisfactory progress when we look in terms of its achievement of development objectives and implementation progress. Secondly, in particular, the SCCF portfolios has demonstrated a high level of achievement with performance ratings and results. Also, there is strong evidence of continued support for gender-sensitive private sector engagement and women-owned business and managed business within LDCF and SCCF portfolios. This includes the design and funding of women's private sector activities that enhance their skills, resources, entrepreneurships, and specialization to improve adaptation and resilience to climate change in their communities. In terms of risks, the overall risk rating for FY24 remains comparable to those from past 2 fiscal years, which is FY22 and 23. Next, please. First, on the LDCF. The GEF Secretariat received reports of 75 LDCF projects. The total project financing amounts close to $467 million with $2.23 billion confirmed co-financing, which is, by the way, not required under the for the LDCF. Of the project financing realized, 182 million or 39% has been disbursed. Natural resource management, agriculture, water resource management, and the coastal zone management are the top 4 sectors covered under the LDCF projects. In terms of regional distribution, 70% of the LDCF projects are in Africa, followed by 25% in Asia, and another 5% in Latin America and Caribbean. Next, please. On the performance, 80% of the LDCF projects in the active portfolios were rated moderately satisfactory or higher in terms of their progress towards development outcomes, and 75% were rated moderately satisfactory or higher in terms of the implementation progress. As you can see, there is a slight dip in overall performance of the DO rating comparing to last fiscal year. Next, please. On the results, active LDCF projects in fiscal year 24 have reached more than 4 million direct beneficiaries, with approximately half of them being a female. These projects have also trained over 186,000 individuals in various aspects of climate change adaptation, with more than 70% of them trainees being female. Furthermore, LDCF finance projects have enhanced the resilience of approximately 317,000 hectares of land. In addition, 295 policies and plans within LDCs have been strengthened or developed to incorporate climate resilience. Next. Moving on to SCCF, next please. Okay. Can I have, okay. Right. Under the SCCF, GEF Secretariat received reports of 14 projects with funding of $56 million and realized a confirmed co-financing of $308 million, which is again not required under SCCF. Of the allocated grant, 66% have been disbursed. The top sectors addressed were infrastructure, water resource management, and nature resource management. Regionally, as you can see here, 38% of the projects are in Asia Pacific, followed by Africa and Latin America at 26% each. Next please. In terms of its performance, 100% of SCCF projects in active portfolios were rated moderately satisfactory or higher in terms of their progress towards development outcomes. And 86% were rated moderately satisfactory or higher in their implementation progress. Next, please. In terms of results achieved, as at June 30, 2023, the cumulative results of SCCF projects counts to more than 10.7 million direct beneficiaries and 152,000 people trained in various aspects of climate change. Similarly, SCCF finance projects enhance a management of approximately 7.2 million hectares of land, and 609 policies and plans have been either strengthened or created to integrate climate resilience. Next, please. Next, I would like to share a snapshot of the terminal evaluations, risk analysis, as well as some of the lessons that we're learning from those projects. Next, please. In terms of terminal evaluations, we received 11 TEs for LDCF and 2 TEs for SCCFs. The data indicates a progress at the TA stage. The results ratio of LDCF projects has exceeded a target area that was set at the CO endorsement stage for 2 core indicators, which is on the number of direct beneficiaries and number of people trained. SCCF projects progress, SCCF has made a progress in terms of areas of land managed for climate resilience. I just want to also note here that the number of projects that we are looking here, especially in terms of SCCF as well as LDCF, the sample size is a little too small for us to be able to say anything concretely in terms of how we are doing the achievement of results at the TA stage. Next, please. On the risks, the risk level faced by LDCF and SCCF projects combined were reported as low as 86%. What that means is that 86% of the LDCFs and SCCF projects are facing low or moderate risk only. This has improved since last report, which was 83%. If we look at individually, 85% of the LDCF projects are reported low or moderate risk, while 94% of the SCCF projects were rated moderate or low in risk. Also, this AMR report corresponds to the first year since the adoption of the new GEF risk appetite, where GEF portfolios were required to report risk profile on 3 reporting milestones at the PIF stage, CO endorsement stage, and at the MTR stage. Unfortunately, the number of projects that we have received for the RIGs that are cut across all three, where we received only 4 MTRs, and it didn't make statistical sense again for us to be able to conduct any deeper analysis on this. Next. Finally, the lessons. Let me say that the report does explore ways to understand the key success factors and challenges behind the performance of the projects. This analysis comes with limitations that we use PIR as an input data, which is not primarily intended to provide the depth and the scale of the data needed to conduct the lesson analysis. As a result, the lessons that we are drawing from this project does not attempt to synthesize across all those 75 projects that we have looked at. Rather, it kind of illustrates, it does not provide sufficient information for us to draw a conclusion from entire portfolio, but it does illustrate some glaring examples of what is making projects successful, out of which the number one is on ownership and the leadership of project stakeholders. We saw that the project with satisfactory range has an active involvement of diverse range of partners that fosters an environment of ownership and accountability, ensuring that all parties remain committed to the project objectives. Secondly, we also noted that lesson from that early consultations with the meaningful participation of local actors, including grassroots, civil societies, women, youth, and indigenous and local communities, contributes in successful implementation of SCCF and LDCF projects. The portfolio project for this reporting period also demonstrated strong engagement with MSMEs actors, such as in the sectors such as agriculture, fisheries, forestries, and it does contribute to the sustainability of the projects. And finally, we noted that project with the activities that helps in generating income does help towards the success of the projects. With this, thank you very much for your kind attention, and over to you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, Dorji, for that presentation. I'll now open the floor for questions and comments in relation to the item. Naomi, if you could manage that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. The floor is now open. Jonas, thanks for starting us off. Floor is yours.
Thanks so much. Our constituency welcomes the FY24 GEF monitoring report. We'll just have a couple of questions for some additional information. For the LDCF, we note the lower development objectives percentage than in FY23. So we are wondering, what are the reasons for this 6% decrease? Also for the LDCF, we note that progress against expected results for the core indicator on area of land managed for climate resilience is quite low, only at 32%. So we would wondering if you could please provide some more information on this challenge and how you plan to address it. For the SCCF, we would appreciate an explanation on the low rate of progress achieved against 3 of the core indicators. We appreciate reporting on successes and challenges in specific projects and the reasons for positive or negative results. However, we would like to ask for a reflection on how challenges encountered in projects could have been better identified and addressed in the design phase through a solid risk analysis, or even more solid on what you already have. Coming towards the end here, we very much appreciate information on projects from the challenge program on adaptation innovation. The engagement with the private sector in these projects should be a source of inspiration for other climate funds, including the GEF Trust Fund, and we urge the Secretariat to share these experiences and the learning with the broader GEF partnership. Lastly, on gender, Could you please specify what percentage of projects now include reporting on sex disaggregated results? I know that's quite a few comments and questions, but just want to use this opportunity to engage with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jonas, for that, for those good comments. Next in line will be Andre, Quentin, CSO Network, and Sandra. Andre, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Noemi. We welcome the report and its overall findings, and we are ready to support the decision. We in particular commend the SCCF for its continued strong performance. However, we do wonder why the LDCF projects with moderately satisfactory or above rating in particular has decreased compared to the historic share. The engagement with the private sector is particularly encouraging and shows that innovative formats involving calls for proposals and accelerators that combine elements of competitions with support and guidance to stakeholders can be very successful in mobilizing private funding. The work on insurance is also of great interest to us. Switzerland financed BioFin's work on insurance, and we would expect there to be potential synergies. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Quentin, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi, and good morning, dear colleagues. I'll be brief since I only have 2 remarks. Thanks a lot for this review that we welcome. I appreciate particularly the information on the 4 best performing projects that show that stakeholders' engagement, ownership, accountability, and adaptive management are key aspects to ensure good results. I also commend the presentation and analysis of the 5 least performing projects. This is a very informative and good practice of transparency. For the rest, I note the amount of some overdue projects, which is not ideal, of course. But I was positively surprised to read in paragraph 46 that overall, the disbursement rate of the overdue project is actually higher than the active portfolio at large. 91% of the project financing of the overdue portfolio had been disbursed, compared with 39% of disbursement rate of the active LDCF portfolio. This information is quite critical, I think. It should help us to better interpret the sometimes low percentage of the implementation progress, because in the AMR, we tend to focus on the 2 usual indicators, which are development objectives and implementation progress. I even wonder if we should not add this 3rd indicator, the disbursement rate, to the 2 usual indicators of the AMR. Anyway, I invite the Secretariat to provide more systematic information about the disbursement rate in the AMR. Also, I would be interested to know to what extent there is a causality link in general between the disbursement rate and the development objective. Sorry if this request is a bit technical, but it would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Quentin. CSO Network, you have the floor.
Good morning. The GEF Civil Society Organizations Network welcomes the annual monitoring review of the Least Development Countries Fund and Special Climate Change Fund. This review provides a qualitative analysis of the active portfolio of LDCF and SCCF projects, identifying key success factors and challenges behind the project performance and exploring stakeholder engagement. Effective involvement of CSOs, indigenous people, local communities, women and youth are essential to effective community-based adaptation, which should be at the core of LDCF and SCCF action. It is a requirement under GEF stakeholder engagement policy of 2016, and that annual monitoring is undertaken on the level of civil society and stakeholder engagement. We note that there is general reference to engagement of stakeholders in the stakeholder engagement section, and also some project examples but we would like to request in future a more detailed analysis of the level of engagement of these key stakeholder groups, such as level and the trends of involvement of civil society organizations or indigenous people organizations as executing projects level and trends in support of youth, etc. Secondly, we are concerned to see that there are a number of unsatisfactory and highly unsatisfactory projects in the portfolio that are suspended or making little progress for various reasons. Given the limitation in resources for the two funds, we wonder whether the projects need to be reformulated or the funds reallocated for other projects. Finally, we would like to express our appreciation for the significant positive achievements of the overall portfolio of the LDCF and SCCF and the efficiency of programming and disbursement. We would, however, like to call again for enhanced action by the various donors to scale up the resources of the two funds in line with the commitment made by all at COP29 in Baku to triple the level of climate finance by 2030. For this remarks from GEF Civil Society Organizations Network, I thank you.
Thank you, CSO Network. Next in line will be Sandra, and then we will give Dorji some minutes to respond to these first initial remarks. Sandra, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi. We thank the Secretariat and the implementing agencies for the analytical work done for the annual monitoring review. We appreciate this very much. We will not be too reiterative, and we concur with comments and questions from council members before this seat speaking, so we will be listening carefully to the answers by Secretariat and the comments. We are very pleased to note that the analysis shows that the key themes of finance for adaptation, training, training, capacity development, and women's empowerment are strongly evident in the portfolio and form the basis for the section of that report on private sector engagement. We would like Secretariat in the future to elaborate a little bit more on this kind of information, and if possible, underpin it with data. As Secretariat knows, we encourage, and the members of the Council as well, I guess, we encourage that the work on gender is further focused on access to finance, to private sector, and more particularly micro, small, medium enterprises. And within that focus, we would like that to be a good portion of that work for women entrepreneurs. So if Secretariat in its future reports could elaborate a bit more, maybe underpin it with data, a number of women entrepreneurs reached, that would be very much appreciated by our seat. Thank you, Noemi.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Now we will give Dorji some minutes to respond to that, and next in line will be Anders. So Dorji, back to you.
Thank you very much, dear Council member. Thank you for these wonderful questions, as well as the comments and good feedback on the reports. In no particular order, which I am very bad at keeping an order of the question, is that I wanted to start addressing the question in relation to the performance of the LDCF and SCCF with regards to the results achievement at the terminal evaluation stage. As I mentioned, the reason to have a lower achievement on the LDCF, for example, in terms of number of policies and area of land managed, has influenced by two projects. And because of the small sample size, as I mentioned, that seems to be influenced. One of them happened to be in a country where project had to be canceled because of the evolving political situations, and that project had to be cancelled. And similarly, there's another LDCF project in the West African region where we found out that the target set during the CO endorsement stage was little over-ambitious. And during the process of implementation, we figured that the agency has got back to us saying that it's a little difficult for them to be able to achieve. Similarly, the results achieved on the SCCF has been influenced by one particular project where the agency had fall through in terms of mobilizing co-financing loan that agency was supposed to bring on the table, and that particular project has affected the performance. So we're looking at two projects, and one of them didn't quite achieve the intended results. So that's how it played out. We note in terms of the gender integration aspects of the project, happy to report that ever since GEF 6, all the projects that we have received for this AMR consideration has a gender being adequately addressed in this. But we do take note of Sandra's comment on having to look at from the perspectives of how women in private sector, particularly with focus on MSMSEs in future reporting, needs to be provided, backed by the data. So we will consider going forward on this one. The other issue that I kind of noted here, scribbled here, is with regards to the disbursement. And the project, as we have mentioned there, a lot of these overdue projects are almost at the end of the initial allocated project durations. And obviously, with that sense, we get a higher disbursement rate than some of the active portfolios. But we do take your, Corentin, we do take your questions that this is something that we could work in terms of how the disbursement rate could be captured in the future report. Jonah's question in terms of why DOs are kind of dipping down this time around, we could speculate a couple of reasons, and one of them happens to be some of these projects are set in the very fragile and complex settings, and obviously it does affect the implementation, but it does affect the development outcome as well, because somehow the political priority changes and governance changes, and there are a couple of projects that showed up in this review that has somehow affected. But I just also wanted to make a note that the review that we are providing here is based on the project implementation reports being submitted to us by agencies. So this is kind of analyzing the information that's coming in, and our partner agencies are working to us, because this is not there are different ways of assigning the ratings for each of these within the agencies. So may not be, these factors might be also, in my view, coming into play. This is all I remember at this point of time, Cheese. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dorji, for those responses. We will continue with the list of speakers, starting with Anders, Stefan, Nicolas, Catherine, and IPAC. With that said, Anders, floor is yours.
Thank you. I can be quite brief, and thanks for a very useful presentation. Very much appreciated. We very much align with the comments already raised by Norway, Switzerland, and Belgium, and the responses you already provide. So what we basically just wanted to add was a reflection in line with what we discussed also in the GEF in terms of risk appetite, that we welcome the good risk management by the Secretariat, and also to distinguish in line with the discussions in the GEF between sort of, it could be acceptable to have a higher risk in terms of technology risk, innovation risk, if we can try out more innovative ways, which may sometimes fail, but if more of them succeed than not, that would be good for the totality of the results achieved in the LDCs. So that risk we would be more tolerant to, whereas as you alluded to, sort of accountability risks, as you phrased it, in evolved political situation, in fragile situations, that kind of risk might, as you already responded to, require some more caution. So just to make a reflection on that, we would be more tolerant to risks when it's linked to technology and innovation risk, whereas continue the caution you already exercise when it comes to the more traditional risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anders, Stéphane, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Nomi. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to speak in French. Donc, merci beaucoup au secrétariat pour le rapport et nous sommes prêts à soutenir la décision proposée. Nous voudrions féliciter les deux fonds pour le niveau élevé de satisfaction observé et la tendance plutôt favorable dans le temps. Cependant, je voudrais insister sur les quelques projets qui n'ont pas obtenu les niveaux de satisfaction attendus. Alors certes, il y en a peu, mais il y en a toujours trop. Et surtout, ces projets sont concentrés en particulier dans deux agences qui se trouvent, sont aussi deux agences qui reçoivent une part importante des financements du LDCF, du SCCF et puis aussi du GEF Main Trust Fund. Donc, il me semble que ça ne fait que renforcer, si besoin en était, l'un de nos grands chevaux de bataille, qui est vraiment la déconcentration des agences de mise en œuvre. Je sais qu'on va encore y revenir dans le cadre de la négociation du prochain cycle GEF 9. Et dans ce cadre, je voudrais aussi rappeler l'une des propositions que nous avons portées il y a 2 semaines à Paris, qui est vraiment de pouvoir informer le processus de suivi des agences de mise en œuvre par des indicateurs de performance, avec le cas échéant une corde de rappel qui permettrait d'en tirer les conséquences et de faire en sorte que l'accréditation ne soit pas un dû sans contrepartie et sans contrôle. Merci.
Merci, Stéphane. Nicolas, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi, and also thank you to the Secretariat for the annual monitoring review of the LDCF and SCCF. We're also, like others, happy to see that we have almost 80% of projects with a satisfactory outcome. And it shows that despite difficult contexts in LDCs and SIDS, we are getting the needed results. But like France, we're also noticing that, of course, 20% then are not satisfactory. And we'd be very interested in how we can improve that. And maybe the Secretariat could share some lessons learned on projects that were not satisfactory. We're happy that co-finance and MDB involvement is strong. And we particularly commend IFAT, and we hope to see new projects from them in the next work program. We also notice AFDB's share in GEF 8 is much lower than the historical participation, and we encourage them to engage more strongly again in the future. FAO's GEF 8 share in the SCCF is too high for our liking at over 60%, and I think we also need to do something about concentration there. But we commend ADB for their strong share at almost 23%. And these figures still do show us that we do need new agencies for the LDCs and SIDS. And so we're happy that we were able to decide on that in the GEF Trust Fund Council meeting. We think private co-finance could still be improved. And we suggest working like the Netherlands, particularly with small and medium-sized enterprises and women entrepreneurs, and also national development banks to leverage domestic resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. And next in line will be Catherine, followed by IPAC and CONCOM. Catherine, you have the floor.
Thank you. So Canada also welcomes the monitoring review, and we support the decision. We're pleased to see projects with a high level of achievements and significant co-financing. As other colleagues have also highlighted, we're very pleased to see that the projects are in line with the GEF's policy on gender equality. And so Canada is very supportive of continued engagement in the design and funding of women's private sector activities that strengthen the skills, resources, entrepreneurship, and specializations of women in their communities for adaptation and resilience to climate change. And then on lessons learned, thank you. We would also appreciate in future reports seeing a little bit more information related to the participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine. IPAC, you have the floor.
The GEF Indigenous Peoples Advisory Group welcomes the annual monitoring review of the LDCF and SCCF with inspired anticipation due to high level of achievement. We acknowledge and appreciate the growing efforts by the LDCF and SCCF to create space for indigenous peoples and to walk alongside the Earth's main stewards of high biodiversity areas. At the same time, we affirm, as raised in the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and in previous sessions, the urgent need for disaggregated data that explicitly reflects and amplify indigenous peoples' realities. We were encouraged to see a section on indigenous peoples' engagement in the review. We invite the funds to deepen this work by continuing to work alongside us and report and support indigenous peoples' data, which is essential for learning, accountability, and truly transformative partnership actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last speaker that I can see so far is Kong. So Kong, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi. We welcome the report on the LDCF and SCCF for FY24. On the LDCF, our constituency would like to acknowledge progress in climate adaptation, capacity building, and resilience building efforts. We would, however, urge for stronger use of innovative financing and technology, stronger integration of gender, like other council members have mentioned, and more private sector engagement. We appreciate the impact that the LDCF has made on the constituency and look forward to a stronger portfolio performance in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Konko. And with you, we conclude the list of speakers as far as I can see. So back to you, Dorji, for some final comments.
Thank you very much for another round of wonderful comments and questions. And in terms of the project performance, as you have noted, there are 4 projects that has not been faring well in this review, as well as some of them actually showed up in the last review as well, of which there's 1 FAO project, 2 UNDP, and 1 UNEP projects. And from the Secretariat side, we are working with the agencies to make sure that the implementations are progressing as been outlined in the CO endorsement document. There is an active conversation going on with the agencies, but we do realize that, we do recognize, in fact, that there are challenges in some of the achieving the DO as well as IP ratings. And I think the question is also on so I think we are working closely with the agencies in trying to address this, but some of these things are sometimes difficult for us to be able to address or provide a straightforward answer because there are political risks and settings happening in the country. With that, we acknowledge the importance of the indigenous communities to be captured in the reports. We do have outlined in the report in itself, but we will make sure that if there is good lessons coming out in next reporting, we will make sure this is being discussed in more details, and hopefully you get to see those in the lessons that would actually be replicated in implementations of the other projects. Chief, you want to hit them? Yep.
Good morning, and thank you so much for good comments. Just building on what Dorji has elaborated, I think
one of the elements that we have been trying in the LDCF and SCCF when it comes to AMR is to have a higher rate of responses from agencies. So the pool of reports that we will have the analysis would be actually ideally close to 100%. And we're not actually quite there yet. And so I think a grain of salt is that what we're looking here is based on the information, as Dorji said, that got provided as reports to the for the AMR exercise. There is a subset that we did not get the reporting on. So first and foremost, for us to have a more comprehensive and realistic picture of what is happening, overall within the partnership, we have to aim for the higher submissions as well as compliance with the policies. And this also touches upon the point I think Stefan was making from France, because what we can actually talk about in terms of the performance per agency, per region, per risk characteristics, we will need to do that based on a much robust and more I won't say 100% response rates on the active portfolio, and we're not quite there yet. So I think it's fair to say it has improved over the years, but we're not quite there yet. And with that, I think we can actually try to draw a little bit more statistically significant and robust analysis of agency-specific or characteristics, risk profile specific performance data. And then that will help us inform our way forward as to what efforts would be needed in terms of certain level of course correction as well as engagement of the Secretariat at the end of the day to liaise with the countries and agencies to address some of the concerns that are coming up in the context. What we do right now is based on the specific project reports, and if there are highly unsatisfactory or ME ratings come up, what we do is we already contact the agencies to make sure we have additional data, and if there is anything that needs to be done in terms of the course correction. And there have been cases, and you might recall in the previous AMRs, where it has led to either a suspension as well or drastic changes to the project implementation execution arrangements within the country. So we do take the information here, but at the end of the day, if we want to draw performance by agencies type data, I do think we need to have additional, more broad compliance on the reporting for us to be able to do that. And one more thing, we will, as requested by Canada, IPAC and also from Concon on the need to have more information on IPLCs and data and private sector innovation and women's engagement. We will, of course, take those on board and we'll try our best to elaborate on those in the next round. And we are also, for the LDCF and SCCF, also cognizant of the IPLC related reporting work that we are going to undertake for the GBFF. We will have consultations, and we also do think that might also help us inform a little bit better in terms of how we capture the numbers and lessons learned on the IPLCF front. That could also be relevant for the LDCF and SCCF. So thank you. Back to you, Co-Chair.
Okay, I don't see any further requests to take the floor. So I'd like to thank everyone for their questions, and also to Dorji and Chiz for your explanations. So at this point, I'd like to invite Council to adopt the draft decision that is included in the document GEF/LDCF SCCF.38/04 for agreement. I don't hear any objections or see any objections, so I'll take that as agreed. Thank you. And I'd now like to hand over to the chair for agenda item 5.
Thank you, Richard. Agenda item 5, thank you, Dorji, is a progress report on the Least Developed Country Fund and the Spatial Climate Change Fund. I would like to invite Jason Spenceley and Lalu Lemmy from the GEF Secretariat to present documents GEF/LDCF SCCF 38/05 progress report on the least developed countries fund and the spatial climate change fund. Gentlemen, you got the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for the opportunity to share the progress report for the LDCF and SCCF. It's my pleasure to do so together with my colleague, Ladu Lemi. We will start, technology permitting. Next slide, please. Thank you. We will start with the Least Developed Countries Fund. Next slide. Good. The LDCF has continued to progress actively in terms of resources received, new project and program approvals, and CEO endorsements and approvals. The financial summary presented in this slide is as of March 31st, 2025. New pledges to the LDCF made during this reporting period were $65.5 million. And a total of $59.1 million in new contributions were received based on previous and new pledges. Next slide, please. Thank you. All LDCF projects approved since the inception of this fund are expected to directly reduce the vulnerability of 17.7 million people, improve the management of 14.4 million hectares of land to withstand the effects of climate change, and train 3.7 million people. In addition, 4,803 policies, plans, and processes are expected to be developed or strengthened to identify, prioritize, and integrate adaptation strategies and measures. Importantly, since the GEF started tracking sex disaggregated data at the beginning of GEF 6, 47.8% of LDCF beneficiaries and 14.9% of people trained are expected to be female. Additionally, since the LDCF started tracking private sector engagement at the beginning of GEF 8, 3,443 entities are expected to be engaged in climate change adaptation and resilience action. Next slide, please. LDCF projects continue to be focused on a range of sectors based on country priorities and contexts, including as specified in NDCs and NAPs. Since inception, the most common sectoral focus continues to be agriculture, followed by water, nature-based solutions, and climate information services. It's my pleasure to turn over to my colleague Ladu to share progress on the Special Climate Change Fund, as well as communication and visibility enhancements. Ladu.
Thank you, Jason. It's my pleasure to address the council. This is my second time, and my name is Ladu Lemi. And I'm going to talk about the progress that has been made in the SCCF fund. Next slide. Okay. In line with the GEF 8 climate change adaptation strategy, the SCCF has continued to progress well in terms of project approvals, resource contributions received, as well as renewed interest from countries. As was the case with the LDCF, the financial information summarized here is as of March 31st, 2025. Since inception of the fund, more than 486 million in pledges have been made to this fund, of which 88% has been received as contributions, and over $400 million have already been programmed. During this reporting period, $42.6 million of new pledges were made to this fund, and $36.4 million of new contributions were received based on previous pledges and contributions. Next slide. Expected results. Since the inception of the fund, the SSF projects are expected to directly reduce the vulnerability of 9.5 million people and improve the management of 5.3 million hectares of land to withstand the effects of climate change, and train over 271,000 people. Additionally, 596 policies, plan, and process are expected to be strengthened to identify, prioritize, or integrate climate adaptation measures. Since the GEF started tracking sex disaggregated data at the beginning of GEF 6, we have more than 47% of the SCF beneficiaries, as well as 42% of the people trained are expected to be female. Additionally, since the SCF started tracking private sector engagement at the beginning of GEF 8, we have 85 MSC and more private sector enterprises are expected to be engaged in climate adaptation and resilient actions. Next. On sectoral distribution, the SSA projects continue to emphasize on an integrated approach focusing on a range of sectors simultaneously within a project. We have water, agriculture, climate information, and nature-based solutions among the most projects that are covered by the SCCF since inception. Next slide. I'll now proceed to dedicated programs. As you all know, the GEF 8 programming strategy for climate change adaptation has included 3 dedicated programs. In this presentation, I will focus on the first dedicated program. The first dedicated program on communication and visibility enhancement has continued to as a priority in this reporting period, with an increasing focus on coordination outreach efforts across the GEF partnership. This has resulted in the publication of over 20 press releases and stories on GEF and SCCF activities through the GEF partners channels. Partnership communication will continue to grow as our focus going forward, with the LDCF and the SCCF taking the lead in the GEF project communication network that CEO Carlos Manuel had already highlighted before, how the GEF is going on in terms of sharing knowledge. In line with the guidance from the Council, we have continued to strengthen our communication in languages other than English, with versions of our latest material now available in French and Spanish. These efforts to increase accessibility to our outreach product will continue to be used in the upcoming reporting period to ensure that no country is left behind. Next slide. Communication has been a focus in our collaboration with the GEF's Sister Multilateral Fund. Together, the funds have produced several joint online outputs in the reporting period, and this include the launch and ongoing development of the Climate Fund Explorer platform, which is enhancing transparency via a publicly accessible IA-powered database for climate projects supported by the GEF, GCF, Climate Information Investment Fund, and the Adaptation Fund. Coming at the end of the previous reporting period, GEF, COP29 provided multiple opportunities to highlight the LDCF and SCCF. It has forecasted efforts towards greater complementarity and coherence among multilateral climate funds. And this include a joint hosting of pavilions and over 30 GEF and joint event funds. It's now my pleasure to hand it back to Jason to present the next part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladu. We will now continue with a brief update on the challenge program for adaptation innovation, and we really appreciate the several reflections from council members on this program. In response to requests for council members, we're glad to have posted an information document for this council meeting on the status of the challenge program for adaptation innovation. This information or inf document includes an update on the status of all projects across the 3 rounds through this program. And importantly, it also includes a set of project level insights and learning, as well as program level reflections on the approach and value of this of the approach of this program. We're also glad to report that preparation and approvals of the 3rd round of winning projects announced at COP29 is advancing in partnership, of course, with GEF agencies, as well as proponents directly, importantly, and of course, consistent with the regular GEF project policies and process. The Council has encouraged the use of up to $80 million for this program in GEF 8, subject to availability of funds. We're delighted that during the previous reporting period, we launched the 3rd call for this challenge program for a total of $20 million from a combination of the LDCF and SCCF. And subject to availability of funds, we're hopeful that we'll be able to do more in the remainder of GEF 8 and building, of course, into GEF 9. This concludes this presentation. Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you so much to both of you for this presentation. And I would like to open the floor to council members for observations, comments, and questions, as we normally do. Noemi will help us with the list of speakers. Noemi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The floor is now open. I don't see anyone else. Okay, CSO Network, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. The GEF CSO Network welcomes the GEF Progress Report on the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund, as it underscores the critical role for these financing mechanisms, that these financial mechanisms play in delivering adaptation benefits to the most climate vulnerable nations, including the most marginalized groups in developing countries. These funds have catalyzed investments in community-based adaptation, rural livelihood diversification, and resilient infrastructure, reaffirming their value proposition. Yet, the voluntary nature of these 2 funds' replenishment continues to hinder predictable, adequate, and sustainable financing, affecting both efficiency and transparency in program delivery. As global geopolitical shifts and tightening donor budgets become more prominent, the urgency to institutionalize robust funding mechanisms has never been greater. While we welcome the report's affirmation of LDCF and SCCF relevance, we note with concern that the current replenishment modalities remain ad hoc. Without binding commitments, predictable resource flows are jeopardized. We call on the GEF Council to develop and adopt replenishment modalities that guarantee adequate and sustainable financing, which will foster justice and center local communities. Given the importance of a community-based approach for adaptation to climate change, we urge the LDCF and SCCF to institutionalize a 20% minimum direct funding allocation within the portfolio for civil society organizations, CSOs, women, youth, indigenous peoples, and local communities. Pilot grants and ad hoc allocations have proven insufficient for systemic change. As the GEF CEO has acknowledged, direct access and empowerment of local actors and communities must be elevated from pilot status to core funding principles. A binding commitment to channel at least 20% of LDCF and SCCF resources to these groups would ensure that those closest to the climate change impacts can design, implement, and benefit from the adaptation initiatives. Transparency and participatory budget are non-negotiable if we are to build trust and inclusion. The report highlights the lack of clear budgeting pathways for LDCF and SCCF allocations, which risks perpetuating inefficiencies and inequities. We call for fully open, inclusive budgeting processes where communities and CSOs can trace every dollar from pledge to project, influencing priorities and hold decision makers accountable. It is not enough to include communities in the titles of the projects. It's crucial to fully incorporate local leaders throughout the process. This echoes the GEF CEO's own call for open, inclusive governance and lessons learned from past projects where opaque funding led to exclusion. Education-related co-benefits must be elevated as a central pillar of LDCF and SCCF programming. While adaptation investments often prioritize infrastructure and resilience building, community-driven education on climate and nature remains underfunded. We recommend dedicated funding windows for climate-smart education initiatives, particularly those that are led by youth, by women, and IPLCs, to build local capacity, raise awareness, and foster long-term resilience. Climate justice demands intersectional solutions. To overcome fragmentation, we call for thematic funding windows that explicitly target projects addressing overlapping forms of marginalization, including gender, age, and race. The GEF's own evaluations have shown that intersectional projects generate deeper, more lasting impact. Embedding this approach within LDCF and SCCF will multiply benefits across sectors, and it's a key priority for us at the CSO network. Redefining success requires us to look beyond hectares restored or dollars disbursed. The GEF must develop new indicators that capture justice, agency, and resilience. Let this progress report serve as a pathway to mainstream the role of local communities as active partners in implementation, not just as beneficiaries. As civil society representatives and young leaders, we stand ready to support this process. It's only through genuine partnership with those that are closest to the ground, including communities most affected by the climate crisis, can the LDCF and SCCF achieve their full transformative potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CSO Network. We will now continue with Nicolas, followed by Sandra. Nicolas, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi. Germany thanks the Secretariat for the progress report on the LDCF and SCCF. I think we can very clearly see that both funds still play an important role in providing targeted support to LDCs and SIDS, as well as catalyzing innovative private finance with the Challenge program. And it's good to see those expected results, but at the same time, we'd like to see a bit more ex post results in the future, because I think we've had more than 15 years of programming now in both funds. And other than just showing, what we expect to achieve in the coming years, we also have to show that these values, that these funds have had very clear values in what they've already achieved. And I think that's something we can put a bit more center stage. Now, what's very clear is that both funds lack resources. I think we have around 50 million left for each for programming. And unless we have new contributions coming in, that's it. Then we'll be empty. And we also have especially window B in the SCCF, which has a chronic lack of funding, even though it has a very interesting aspect with that innovative private finance. And I think in the council, we have to have a very honest discussion about the future of these funds. We, Germany, still see a very clear value in them as we laid out. I think we also, in addition to the targeted support to LDCs and SIDS, we have a very high IFI engagement, which is higher than the GEF Trust funds. So there's definitely something that is unique and the unique selling points about them. But at the same time, that value can only be realized continuously if we have the financial stability for that. So that's something we have to be able to solve sooner rather than later. And one idea that we would like to propose is to maybe have a suggestion to the UNFCCC next time that we could designate the SCCF as a fund exclusively for SIDS. So we could make it, in the sense, the SIDS fund, while maintaining the Challenge program and that private sector innovation, but integrates it into window A essentially and have it only be for SIDS. I think that could be a great way to have stronger visibility for the SCCF and very clearly show to both traditional but also new donors and maybe private sector donors that you have a very clear goal, which is to support the most vulnerable countries, which we already have with the LDCF, then it will be the SECF is very clearly for small island countries, their own fund. So we will be very happy to hear some views on that and yes, what the next steps could be to suggest that to the COP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. I'll now give the floor to Sandra, followed by Quentin. Sandra, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi. We thank Secretariat for the report and for the very good presentation. We also thank Germany for the suggestions made. I think it's certainly something we should discuss in the future. We welcome the cooperation with the multilateral climate funds, particularly the Green Climate Fund, and are very interested to read more about this in future reporting by Secretariat, particularly on the cooperation with the Green Climate Fund, and not just the other multilateral climate funds, but also relevant multilateral organizations. We don't want to put a burden on Secretariat. So if this is too much work, we understand it, but we would appreciate a little bit more. Also because most of the members of this council are also represented in the board of the Green Climate Fund and in the other boards and councils. So it would be good to get that sense of cooperation in a narrative that I think would be very good for us. Thank you, Noemi.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I'll now give the floor to Quentin, followed by Anders. Quentin, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Noemi. And thanks a lot to the Secretariat for that report that we welcome and we are pleased to approve. First, we would like to congratulate the LDCF for this very successful year 2024 with a record number of new programming. At the same time, we know that further success in the future obviously requires a sustained level of contributions. In this regard, we hope that both existing and new donors will be able to pledge new contributions. On the report as such, I have 3 specific questions. On paragraph 11, we know that 14 LDCs haven't accessed any LDCF finance so far during the GEF 8. Could you clarify what the reasons are for that and what are the perspectives in this regard for the coming years? And what could be done to remedy this? We also know the improvement on the average time it takes for projects to go from PIF approval to CEO endorsement. It is now about 16 months. This is very good news. And from the report, it is less clear how many projects are late in receiving the CEO endorsement. In other words, these are in the notification of delayed submission procedure. So thanks for this clarification. We would appreciate to have this information included also in the next progress report, if possible. On paragraph 63, we welcome the successful third round of the challenge program for adaptation innovation. We also note the update on this program shared as information document. So does the Secretariat propose to make any changes to this program based on this update? For example, we note the difficulty for the agencies to implement projects below $2 million. So, and to try to solve this, would it be possible for the Secretariat to work, for example, towards a portfolio approach, allowing the implementation of various small projects, but combined in a larger portfolio? Otherwise, would it make sense perhaps to link this challenge program with the project-specific approval system, which is proposed for the LDCF for the GEF 9 period? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Anders, followed by Emily. Anders, floor is yours.
Thank you. Just a word of support for the German reflections on exposed results in line with our non-paper ahead of the GEF 9 replenishment for the GEF. We would also welcome to review continuity also after the finalization of the projects in LDCF as well. And we would also welcome an honest discussion about the future of the fund. Sweden has been a consistent donor, and I believe still the largest per capita donor ever since the inception of the fund of the LDCF. So clearly, like Germany, we are very much supportive of the LDCF. At the same time, we would also want to look at what could be the best value of the totality of the family of funds. Also recognizing that the sort of landscape of LDCF has changed compared to 2002. So we are supportive of it, but in line with what Germany said, we would also be open to have a reflection about the funds. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Anders. I'll now give the floor to Emily. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi, and also many thanks to Jason for the presentation. Our constituency would like to thank the GEFSEC for preparing this report, and we very much welcome the good progress under both funds, including the large share implemented by IFIs. And I just have two very quick questions. We note that since the funds have started tracking sex disaggregated data, 47.8% for the LDCF and 47.3% for the SCCF of the expected project beneficiaries are female. So we would just like to know whether this trend has been increasing since GEF 6, and also if you have data on the percentage for actual project beneficiaries. And then secondly, we would like to know how and whether the GEF trust funds and the GBFF can benefit from the new partners, such as private sector, that the LDCF, SCCF have engaged with as part of the challenge program to enhance the GEF partner or the GEF family's collaboration with such actors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Stéphane, vous avez la parole.
Merci. Donc nous aussi, nous aimerions féliciter les deux fonds pour le rapport proposé et la présentation du programme de travail. Comme le Danemark à l'instant, nous souhaiterions aussi exprimer notre satisfaction sur l'augmentation de la part des financements transitant par les banques multilatérales de développement. J'aurais juste une question sur la coopération avec le Fonds vert pour le climat, s'agissant de l'élaboration des plans nationaux d'adaptation. Est-ce que vous pourriez nous donner plus de détails sur cette coordination et peut-être sur son renforcement actuel dans le cadre des différentes initiatives qui sont lancées par les 4 fonds verticaux? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Stéphane. Samantha, you have the floor.
Thank you. On behalf of the Caribbean constituency, let me say a sincere thank you to the donors, to the SCCF, and especially to Germany for recommending a dedicated fund for SIDS, which we fully support. I don't think I need to convince anyone here of the critical importance of these funds to us SIDS who are on the front lines of climate change. With respect to the 85 private sector enterprises that are expected to be engaged over the period, we are discouraged at this low number, especially since our economies are largely driven by MSMEs. In that vein, we call on the GEF Secretariat to explore further measures for targeted engagement and support to SIDS on ways to further engage the private sector with the aim of building climate resilience, especially in the productive sectors, which we know are very limited in SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samantha. And I will conclude the list of speakers for this agenda item. So I will now give the floor back to both Jason and Ladu for responses.
Thank you very much, Noemi. We really appreciate these comments. They're really, and reflections, they're really useful for us as we continue to strive for stronger impact and for greater strategy and design. So thank you. We'll try to address as many as possible, as well as possible. First, from Germany, Nicolas, on the point of ex post results and reporting on those, reflecting, communicating those, point very well taken. We'd like to point out that the Independent Evaluation Office, of course, has a strong mandate and focus in this area. And actually, shortly, there will be an evaluation of the LDCF and SCCF shared and a management response to that, I believe, just before lunch, if I'm not mistaken, maybe just after lunch. As well as I can point out, there's some reflections on ex post in the AMR as well. Specifically on the point of windows of the SCCF and focusing of windows, we would like to point out that this is a decision by the COP, by the Conference of the Parties, as it is the COP that decided to create the SCCF with 4 different windows. And Chizuru, if you'd like to expand on that, we would welcome it. Specifically to the point from the Netherlands, thank you, on highlighting the importance of collaboration with the multilateral funds and among the multilateral funds. We hear you and we share the importance. Collaboration both multilaterally as well as bilaterally as possible, because we see that these are in parallel, both the multilateral and the bilateral cooperation are synergistic. And there are some things that it really makes sense to do multilaterally and some things bilaterally. I can assure you this is active and ongoing with many late night calls to Songdo continue through the working groups. And we take this very seriously. From Belgium, the question of the 14 LDCs, Ladu, my colleague, is going to refer to that, as well as the time on a PIF approval to CEO endorsement. One thing I will say about the time decreasing it from PIF approval to CEO endorsement, this is really important. Really important that timeliness as a dimension of accessibility is really crucial. I think we've seen some increase there, but we're not satisfied. We need more increase. I can also point out that this truly is an issue of the GEF partnership. The Secretariat has a lot of leverage and a lot of ways to improve, and it really is a partnership together with the agencies and the countries to together continue to improve this, all timeliness aspects. On the reflections on the challenge program for adaptation innovation. Indeed, we're listening very, and you know, the future of that. Thank you to this question from Belgium. Thank you very much. We're listening very carefully, or we were listening very carefully in Paris to the reflections, as well as to the comments that have been made here in the Council. For the future of the Challenge Program for Adaptation Innovation in GEF 9. We do appreciate it will be subject to availability of funding. This said, we see strong potential and we see a key value added that this program is playing in the broader ecosystem of climate adaptation finance, including for piloting and modeling innovations, including private sector engagement and blended finance for adaptation and innovation, with potential for sequenced financing and potentially scale-up financing from other sources, whether they're multilateral climate funds, private sector, bilateral cooperation in some cases. That's very important. The 2 suggestions or options for either combining projects, small projects, together within a program in order to increase efficiency and maybe scale, and a point well taken. We'd really like to think that through, as well as linking this perhaps with a project accreditation initiative approach, as was discussed, as was discussed in Paris. That's also very well taken. We'll be happy to follow up on that and really think through those options. Okay. The reflection from Denmark, thank you, on are we increasing the percentage of female beneficiaries and people trained? To be very frank, the answer is, I think so. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but we could report on this perhaps, where it wouldn't be difficult to report, for example, by GEF period, since we've been reporting sex disaggregated data, GEF 6, GEF 7, GEF 8. I think we could break that down quite easily in progress report or elsewhere. But just since I've been here for 6 years, I can say intuitively the numbers have, yes, been increasing, but I don't have the specifics. But yeah, that could easily be pulled out. On the reflection also on learning about private sector engagement and innovations across the family of funds. Really well taken, point really well taken, and something that I can assure is very active with colleagues. Also colleagues working on the blended finance program as well as on the private sector engagement program across the family of funds. What can we learn from the Challenge Program for Adaptation and Innovation that can be relevant for the GEF Trust Fund, for example? We can learn a lot and we benefit from that engagement. And again, I think this is one of the beauties of the family of funds approach. I'll pause there. Over to you, Ladu.
Okay, Jason. On Belgium comment on 14 countries that have not yet accessed the fundings. What I wanted to highlight is before here, we had conducted a number of outreach activities with countries, so on project development, of which some of the countries have developed projects and they have been approved. The 14 countries that have not yet accessed, actually, some have submitted. As we speak now, we have about 7 projects that were submitted, but as was reported previously that we do not have enough resources for this work program, that's why they are not included. But already work is going, projects have been developed, and hopefully if we get enough resources in the next coming council, there will be a good number of countries that could have accessed the funding. There was also a question about, I don't know from where, about collaboration with the GCF in regards to National Adaptation Program. There has been an initiative before GEF was supporting NAP preparation and development, but there was a cooperation between GEF and the GCF on who supports which part of the development process. So GCF had taken the mandate to support countries in the development of NAPs, while GEF takes on the implementation of all the aspects of the NAP. Currently, when we have a project submitted, there is an element where countries can indicate that this project contributes to NAP implementation within the country. Still, supplement. Okay. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. I understand that Navan, you were requesting the floor. Yes, if you could click, there you go. And now Awiti will enable your microphone. Okay, you're good to go.
Thank Naomi. Our East Asia constituency welcome GEF report on LDCF and SCCF. We appreciate the high achievement with high co-finance of the project implementation. We also appreciate the strong engagement for women and private sector in the project. Cameroon as an LDC country, we benefit a lot from LDC fund, and we very much gratitude to donor country. And we need to see more allocation fund dedicated for adaptation sector for the next GEF dependent. Thanks.
Thank you, Navan. I don't see anyone else requesting the floor. So I believe that this concludes our list of speakers. Jason, Lado, if you will have any final reactions before passing over to the chair.
Again, thank you for the reactions. We're have been taking copious notes and we'll be taking them on board.
Thanks to both for the exchange with Council. And with this, I will invite the Council to adopt the draft decision that is included in the document. Document GEF/LDCF SCCF 38/05. Progress report, the least developed countries fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. I see no objections. Agenda item approved. Thank you so much.
Gracias, mi CEO.
Gracias. With this, we go to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 6, update on the development of the GEF programming strategy and adaptation to climate change for the least developed country fund and the special climate change fund and operational improvements from July 2026 to June 2030. I would like to invite my colleague, Roston Moore, to provide an update on the development of the GEF programming strategy. Roston, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished colleagues, council members, alternates, good morning. And it's my pleasure to present to you updates on the ongoing work on the development of the programming strategy and operational enhancements for the climate change adaptation portfolio, the LDCF, SCCF strategy for 2026 to 2030. And this is in document LDCF SCCF 38-02. The presentation is in line with the planning note approved by the last council, where the Secretariat is requested to keep the council updated on the progress preparing the CCS strategy for LDCF and SCCF. This agenda item provides an update and progress on the reports and the consultations which we have held so far on the emerging strategic direction of the CCS strategy. Your feedback today will help shape the continued development of the strategy, particularly as we prepare the next draft. I'm pleased to update that leading up to this council meeting, we have achieved a number of milestones on our journey. We have organized a very first productive meeting on the draft strategy in Paris 2 weeks ago, where many of you actually participated. And in my next slides, I will provide some additional details on that. Also, this first meeting was basically a combination of a series of informal consultations with various stakeholders, starting with the adaptation tag, which was held in February, back to back with the GEF Trust Fund tag. And I will provide more details as well on that in our later slides. Most importantly, these informal consultations provide useful input into preparing the first draft of the programming strategy and operational enhancements. Next slide. The adaptation tag meeting was held in February, where we have thought leaders, experts, for example, from IPCC, our colleagues from STAT. We also had many people from civil society and the youth, where we examined the challenges and the opportunities for the LDCF, SCCF, the value addition, the broader work, and the linkages with the work of the Trust Fund. The TAG meeting provided details and insights on possible ways forward for the development of the strategy. And I think for many of us, it inspired us to continue with the work which we're doing. We had very many high-level inputs from very many distinguished experts from around the world. Next slide. As I said, civil society and youth representation was also involved in these consultations. And this has been a key element. And I must say, in particular, the youth were particularly well represented at our tag and provided us with some excellent input for our development of the strategy. In addition, to the tags, we also had a number of informal consultations with some donor countries, the LDC groups and other groups, focusing on the thematic and operational priorities and also issues related to resources. Next slide. As I said, the first meeting of the programming strategy was held in Paris in May, just a couple of weeks ago, in conjunction with the GEF Trust Fund replenishment meeting. This meeting discussed the strategic positioning of the GEF,
approaches, key thematic priorities, and possible operational improvements. There were a wide array of participants. The trustee was there, our evaluation office, and also our colleagues from the multilateral climate funds participated as well. Next slide. In terms of engaging strategic direction, there was a strong call for the streamlining of themes and approaches while ensuring country-driven priorities remain at the center. As many colleagues have said about the small island developing states, there was a call to strengthen the SCCF to focus more on SIDS. There was the issue of promoting private sector engagement and more innovation, including in areas where the SCCF can continue to provide catalytic value. We should also, it was noted as well, coming out of these discussions, to continue the work on reform and processes, reform of our processes, governance issues, and examine additional options as it relates to resource mobilization as well. Now, in terms of next steps, the draft chair's summary of this meeting should be circulated by June 6th, while the deadline from comments on the strategy from council members and parties, written comments is June 19th. So we would like to receive your written comments by June 19th on the strategy. Next slide. So what do we do as we go forward? We will continue to have informal consultations. Next week, in the margins of the UNFCCC subsidiary bodies meetings, we will have some consultations with the small island developing states and the SIDS, and also the least developed country parties. And based on your feedback as well, we will also prepare a revised strategy for our next meeting in October or November of this year. If we do recall from our previous paper, which we had at our last council, this meeting was originally scheduled to be in the margins of the COP in Berlin, but logistically that is proven extremely challenging, and we don't think that this will occur. So we also would like your feedback on this particular issue as well. Okay. A revised strategy will be presented in March, April for our next meeting. We will provide updates on our progress in the December council as well. And we will also have a meeting as well in March after the December council, back to back with the GEF Trust Fund meeting. So, colleagues, thank you very much for paying attention to this short presentation. And Chair, I turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, Rolston, for this presentation on agenda number 6. With this, I would like to open the floor for questions and comments from council. Noemi, help us with the list of speakers, please.
Of course, Chair. I'll now give the floor to CSO Network.
The CSO Network welcomes the development of a new adaptation program and strategy and appreciate the opportunity to engage in the recent Paris consultation. We commend the GEF for its continued commitment to supporting the most vulnerable through the LDCF and SCCF. However, we urge stronger integration of civil society and local voices throughout the strategy. While participation was acknowledged, clear mechanisms for ongoing engagement, particularly for grassroots, indigenous, women-led, and youth organizations, are still missing. Their inclusion as co-creators of solutions is essential for effective and lasting adaptation. We also emphasize we need for a robust result framework with transparent monitoring and evaluation to track impact, ensure accountability, and foster continuous learning. Furthermore, simplifying access to funding for local actors and embedding social equity and human rights into the strategy are key to achieving transformative change. We stand ready to contribute further and call on the GEF Secretariat and Council to ensure the final strategy reflect the insight and priorities of communities most affected by climate change. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, María. André, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank the Secretariat for preparing the strategy, and we appreciate the science and fact-based approach by consulting the GEF Technical Advisory Group, for example. So if there would be a report from this Technical Advisory Group, that would also be very appreciated to have that. We have engaged actively in the first meeting on the programming strategy last month, and will continue to do so. And we will submit written comments by 19th of June, and also welcome the invitation for bilateral discussions. We strongly support the suggestion to hold the second meeting back-to-back with the second replenishment meeting. Finally, we also encourage all potential contributors, especially contributor recipients, to participate in these meetings and hopefully make a financial contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, André. I don't see anyone else requesting the floor. Floor is still open for any comments under this agenda item. Nope. All right, Ralston. So with that, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Naomi, and thank you for the comments. I think with regards to our colleagues from the CSO network, for the GEF replenishment process, an additional observer for Indigenous peoples was added. And so we can also, I think, give some consideration and also add it for the LDCF, SCCF. And for our other comments, we can also discuss the issue with regards to the tag report. I think with that, that's it. Sure.
Thank you, Ralston. Yeah, thanks, Ralston, for the update. There is no decision to be taken on this one. And even though I do have a lot of hungry, we're very early to go to lunch according to the program. And I would like to propose council to move one or two of the agenda items that we had programmed for the afternoon for the next one, which will be, if you all agree, or do you want to have a very, very early lunch? No. Okay, good. So we will go with agenda item number 7, Independent Evaluation Office Report 2025 and Management Response. My co-chair will be leading this agenda item. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Ralston. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheers, Ralston, and thank you for the introduction, Chair. So I'd like to invite Gita from the GEF IEO to present document GEF/LDCF.SCCF 38/E01, the Independent Evaluation Office Annual Report 2025 and Management Response. When you're organised, back over to you, Gita.
Thank you very much, Chair. I had a very good afternoon in my script, but it's still a very good morning. So good morning to everyone. Today, we're going to present the findings of the 2025 annual evaluation report for the LDCF and SCCF. I'm joined by my colleague, Rasek, who joined us about a year ago, and he's been predominantly working on this portfolio. You're all used to seeing Anna Vig usually presenting. Unfortunately, Anna is out. She's just had major knee surgery and hence could not join us today. Since the completion of OPS 7, 77, and there were questions about, looking at terminal evaluations or what happens when projects closed. So 77 projects financed by LDCF and SCCF have been completed and have terminal evaluations. For the purposes of today, we're going to focus on the 33 projects reported on since 2023. So these have just come into closure in the last couple of years. 20 funded by LDCF, 8 by SECF, and 5 through multi-trust fund agreements. Geographically, 55% were implemented in Africa, 21% in Asia. Smaller shares were in Eastern Europe and Central Asia at 6%, global and regional initiatives together about 18%. But most notably, 27 of the 33 projects were implemented at the national level, underscoring the local nature of adaptation efforts. Now, these 33 projects represent roughly 200 million in direct financing, leveraging an additional 1.6 billion in co-financing. UNDP was the lead implementing agency, managing 27% of the projects, followed by the World Bank at 25%. Now, in terms of thematic interventions, they focused basically in 5 areas: climate smart agriculture, sustainable livelihoods, coastal zone management, early warning systems, and disaster risk reduction. Next slide. Turning to performance, we've heard from the annual monitoring report as well. The results are positive. 88% achieved outcome ratings in the satisfactory note, but there's variability. 64% are moderately satisfactory, which means they're on the edge. In terms of sustainability, it's been a recurring theme. It's a key area for concern. 57% of projects were rated moderately likely to be sustainable. None reached the categories of likely or highly likely. 26% were rated moderately unlikely, and 17% rated unlikely. These results point to the challenge in maintaining impact past project closure, especially due to financial limitations or limited institutional follow-through. So some other findings, and Canada as well as a few other countries raised this issue about gender. We find that gender integration correlates a lot with project performance success and better performance. The old adage goes, what gets measured gets done. So one of the issues is when it's well monitored and measured, you tend to see better gender performance. Now, 5 key success factors emerged driving this success: community ownership, implementation flexibility, alignment with national priorities, gender inclusion, and strong monitoring systems. Scaling adaptation is a challenge, and there's several barriers ranging from institutional constraints to funding gaps, but in a lot of cases, political instability as well. I wanted to just highlight one project where genders made a huge difference in Benin, implemented by UNDP. 70% of the participants were women. And most notably, there was a sustained income increase with 30% average annual income gains among those engaged in alternative livelihoods like fish farming or soap production and vegetable cultivation. Now, what made this possible? One is good tracking and monitoring of the gender indicators, tailored gender analysis at the municipal level, and the promotion of women's leadership. So it's not just about participation of women. It's about giving them leadership roles in local governance and in project activities. Another example I wanted to give you on scaling from, while it's a challenge, there are clearly success cases where this has worked. And from the Lao PDR, this is an FAO-led project which was successfully scaled up through GCF financing. What were some of the enabling factors? A big focus on strengthening institutional capacity, expanded financial mechanisms, integration of climate tools into national policy. And here's where the complementarity between the GEF and the GCF really worked. And I think there was a question to that. And we're looking at this very closely in the IEO. We're looking at We look at the GCF portfolio, we look at what were GEF-funded projects, how are they being scaled up, what's the follow-through by the GCF, so that we can better understand these complementary mechanisms at work. And of course, coordinated strategies across governments, agencies, and local actors. So this case actually provides a very good blueprint for how complementarity between the two funds work, as well as how scaling up worked. Next slide, please. Monitoring and evaluation is a critical component in projects. And here, 83% were highlighted as satisfactory in M&E design. So frameworks get it right. M&E in design is not a problem. Where the problem is in implementation, where only 50% of the projects were rated as satisfactory in terms of M&E implementation. Now, this is important because if adaptive measures have to be taken, unless one is measuring this across the project cycle, it's extremely difficult to know what to adapt and how to adapt. So it becomes really important for good monitoring during implementation. I'd like to give an example of where adaptive management worked well. The Sudan project implemented by UNDP is an example of adaptive management in action. And what were the problems first, and then what was the adaptation? Early on, the project had actually 3 challenges. They had weak cross-sectoral coordination, very limited stakeholder engagement, and inadequate learning systems. There was very little knowledge and learning being exchanged. This project learned from the midterm review. The midterm review had several recommendations that were actually taken on board. There was a mainstreaming reference group established to improve coordination across sectors and embed climate resilience in planning. They also introduced participatory monitoring, and they said this was actually the most critical part of adapting, establishing a good participatory monitoring system which brought local stakeholders into decision-making. And finally, to strengthen knowledge, local knowledge hubs were created to document climate-smart practices in land and water management, supporting both replication as well as scale-up. So these course corrections, so what did it do? Did it result in any better outcome? Sure, it did. It improved project relevance, it improved ownership and impact, and in the end contributed to over 176,000 hectares of forest under climate resilient management, benefiting more than 100,000 people. So this ties in the importance of monitoring, adaptive learning within the project cycle. So based on all these findings, again, just like the annual performance report on the GEF side, we normally don't do recommendations on the AER, but this has now been a recurring issue. We've seen it about 4 or 5 AERs that we've done over time. So we felt it's important, and we've discussed this with the GEF Secretariat, and they were very open to the suggestion of actually trying to address barriers to scaling up through coordinated action on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajita. I would now like to invite Jason and Olya, is it just Jason? And Shola as well, to introduce the document GEF LDCF SCCF 38/06, the management response on the LDCF SCCF annual evaluation report. Over to you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair. It's an honor to address the Council again this morning. The GEF Secretariat welcomes the LDCF SCCF annual evaluation report and agrees with its findings. The GEF Secretariat particularly appreciates the finding that a substantial 83% of projects reviewed as part of this 2025 cohort received an outcome rating within the satisfactory range at the design stage, and no projects received an unsatisfactory rating. The GEF Secretariat also appreciates the finding that this cohort demonstrated a 9% improvement in sustainability prospects at design stage compared to the projects reviewed in 2023. The evaluation contains one recommendation with which the GEF Secretariat is very much in agreement, which is that in order to achieve sustained and transformative impact from climate change adaptation investments, the GEF partnership must place greater emphasis on identifying and addressing implementation-related barriers to scaling up adaptation efforts. The GEF Secretariat takes the issues of sustainability, transformation, and scale up of LDCF and SCCF support seriously. Accordingly, the first draft of the programming strategy on adaptation to climate change for the GEF 9 period explicitly articulates a set of pathways to address sustainability and scale up barriers. Approaches to doing so specified in the GEF 9 LDCF SCCF programming strategy include, for example, aligning programming with MDP investment frameworks and IDA resources more and more, deepening innovation and private sector engagement for scale up and sustainability, emphasizing whole of society approaches that directly address critical sustainability barriers, especially in LDCs and SIDS, and enhancing coordination with other multilateral climate funds through a series of pathways and options, including sequencing financing. These approaches, as well as others, are and will be elaborated further in responses to the recommendation. It's now my pleasure to turn over to Shola.
Thank you very much, Jason. Building on that, I would like to highlight some recent actions that we have made to ensure our projects are designed to address implementation-related barriers to sustainability and scale up. For example, in 2023 and 2024, this GEF Secretariat delivered a series of sub-regional adaptation workshops under our dedicated program on outreach and capacity building that involved about 69 LDCs and SIDS. These workshops contributed to strengthening the capacity of the GEF partnership, including agencies and participating countries in design and implementation for sustainability and scale up. The GEF Secretariat is committed to continue to strengthen projects to improve sustainability and scaling up of project impact. As such, we will continue to ensure that all projects are designed for sustainability and scale up of project outcomes. We will also continue to work within the GEF partnership, particularly with participating countries and GEF agencies to identify and ensure deployment of good practices during project implementation to achieve sustainability and scale up. With that, I thank you and I hand it back to the co-chair.
Thank you both, Jason, Shola, for those for that response. I'd now like to open up the floor to any questions or comments from council or observers. Thank you.
Anders, floor is yours, followed by Andre.
Thank you. A few reflections from us. Firstly, also to thank the IEO and the Secretariat for an excellent report and the response to it. Very useful and appreciated as always. We note, as was raised, that sustainability remains a concern in a significant number of projects, and therefore, referring to previous discussions, would welcome to continuous attention through ex-post evaluations in this regards also ahead in future IEO reports. This is indeed very valuable. We also welcome continuous attention to how to overcome the identified challenges in scaling up projects. You mentioned some measures already in that regard, but also a very good observation to continue to work on. On both points, we also take away your note and comments on that financial but also institutional aspects, and in some cases in-country risks or political risks could be a factor. A question from our side, we noted that 55% received lower ratings after the midterm evaluation, and this is in contrast with the generally positive trend in this regard in GEF projects. So we wonder if there are any possible learnings between the funds in this regard. And then also finally to positively note that gender integration demonstrates a strong correlation with project success, with a clear relationship between gender responsive approaches and superior outcomes. We think this is a very strong reflection and learning as we work ahead, both in terms of the LDCF and in the moving into GEF 9. And we also very much welcome the positive example of Benin, which you presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anders. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Noemi. We would like to thank the IEO for preparing the report and the GEF Secretariat for preparing the management response. The findings and recommendations, some are recurrent, remain highly relevant, and we encourage the GEF and especially also the GEF agencies and recipient countries involved in project design and implementation to heed them in future projects. Accordingly, we welcome that the GEF Secretariat embraces the recommendations and appreciate information about how the GEF has and is already addressing the implementation-related barriers. We also recognize, as mentioned, that all partners of the GEF partnership have to play their role and embrace the recommendations in order to ensure and further improve project design and implementation. 2 of the 5 identified drivers of climate adaptation success are particularly noteworthy in our view. First, the correlation of gender-responsive approaches with superior project outcomes. And second, the direct contribution of comprehensive monitoring frameworks to implementation, effectiveness, and long-term sustainability. Investments in both have been questioned at times. However, the evaluations show that investing in gender and M&E pays off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now give the floor to Catherine, followed by Nicolas. Catherine, floor is yours.
Yes, so thank you, Gita and the whole team for the report, and thank the Secretariat for the response. Well, as my colleagues also highlighted, although there are significant challenges related to sustainability, there seems to be improvement related to compared to the 2023 ER, so that's positive. We also thank you for the insights into the increasing focus on technology transfer and innovation. We really view this as a key driver for effective and scalable climate adaptation solutions. And then in terms of course, we talk about gender equality. We're pleased to see that a large percentage of the projects that were evaluated incorporated gender analysis in the design. So there's progress there, and we see more and more of a foundational commitment to understanding and addressing gender considerations from the outset. So that's good. We also are noting from your assessment of the terminal evaluation that 99% of projects included at least some gender disaggregated indicators. And so we acknowledge that some projects are still working to fully capture gender equality contributions, but the findings are, it seems like it's a positive trajectory on that front. Yep, I'll stop there for now. Thanks.
Many thanks, Catherine. I'll now give the floor to Nicolas, followed by Ramon, who is joining us online. Nicolas, floor is yours.
So thank you to the IEO for the evaluation, and also the Secretariat for the management response, which we endorse. I just wanted to quickly come back to my point about ex post measuring, because before the Secretariat referred me to the IEO, and I think now it's been very helpful to see these individual project highlights and to have the ex post results, but I think it would also be helpful to have some aggregated results ex post where we really see how those indicators develop for the whole portfolio. And I think what would also be important to put that into context, to have some kind of scientifically determined target goal, for example, by the IPCC, so that we don't just have 100,000 trees were restored or planted, because that's a number. Often it's difficult to really determine, is 100,000 much? Is it less? Is it little? And so to kind of see this is something we would need to achieve in that country context for real environmental change. And then this is what LDCF and SCCF have actually achieved ex post, I think would be very helpful for council to understand, but also in general in terms of visibility and attractiveness of the funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicolás. Ramón, tienes la palabra.
Gracias, Noemí. Voy a terminar en español. En primer lugar, gracias Gita por la presentación y a la oficina de
Ramón, perdón que te interrumpa, pero te escuchamos con un poco de eco. ¿Podrías mencionar algo a ver si te escuchamos mejor?
Pero ahora, mejor ahora.
Todavía no. A ver. A ver, ¿podríamos intentar otra vez?
A ver, ¿me oís?
Todavía te escuchamos con un poquito de eco.
Queríamos dar las gracias a la oficina.
Sí, creo que no está funcionando, Ramón. No sé si puedas tal vez salirte de Zoom y volver a entrar y lo intentamos.
Vale, gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ramón. Una disculpa. All right, so Ramon will rejoin Zoom shortly. In the meantime, I suggest then that we break for some comments with Jason and Chola. Then we can try to go back to Ramon and with the list of speakers remaining here in the auditorium. Yeah. All right, so maybe Gita? Gita and Rasek, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for these comments. And Anders, to come to your point about what is the switch between 55% from the MTR to the completion. And I will tell you that what we've seen in the GEF portfolio, as well as in the in this portfolio, is the optimism expressed at the MTR stage. In general, you find higher ratings at the MTR stage, and then realism kicks in later on how things are actually going, and then you don't want to be stuck with an overrated terminal evaluation that gets you into trouble later, right? So I think this is something we've seen, we're examining, and our work on learning from challenges actually talked about and gave a lot of information about how projects that are failing and recognize that they're failing at the MTR stage when they adapt, like the Sudan case, actually can get onto a trajectory of success. So it's not like once you're MTR, but there has to be the emphasis on a culture of allowing recognition that a project is not doing well. So that has to come someplace from an institutional standpoint of encouraging honest reporting. So that's I just wanted to highlight that, what we've observed. Thank you, Canada, for the gender. Yes, we are continuously trying to do more work on gender, even at the IO. You're going to see a very interesting evaluation coming out in the next month and a half on gender and inclusion in the context of fragile and conflict-affected situations. Because we feel that vulnerable groups are even more adversely impacted in these situations. And so we are focusing on that. And we will bring it to the December Council, but it will be reflected in OPS as well. So our work on gender continues. Nicholas, yes, ex-post measuring is important. And I will say, as part of the IO emphasis in the next replenishment period, we are looking to do much more on ex-post sustainability, both for LDCF, SCCF, as well as the GEF Trust Fund. And doing more at the country level, because Sometimes in the context of projects and programs, we are unable to pick up the demonstration effects that the GEF interventions could have created, even though there's no follow-up by GCF or GEF. And that's when we will track some of these measurable indicators as well to the best we can. So we want to do more country work, and we want to do more on ex post sustainability in the next replenishment period. And that's what you'll see in our work program and budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gita. I'll now pass it over to Jason.
Great, thank you. We reiterate our gratitude for the comments and reflections, really valuable. Specifically on the gender piece, just an additional reflection there. We really appreciate the importance, and it was really clear in the evaluation, so very useful for all of us, for the whole GEF partnership, I think, to see that increased the articulation of that correlation between focus on designing and implementing for gender outcomes and the actual sustainability, and I would add impact of project outcomes. An additional reflection is that since GEF 6, so that was in 2018, updated and strengthened the focus on gender, the gender policy, sex disaggregated data. Now that we're seeing projects that were designed, some projects that were designed governed under this updated strategy, we're seeing much more purposeful focus on gender dimensions and outcomes. We're hopeful that we'll continue to see that as we're receiving midterm evaluations and final evaluations for projects that were approved, governed under the updated gender policy and inclusion of sex disaggregated data and their impact indicators. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both Gita and Jason. Now let's try to see if we can go back to Ramon. Ramon, if you can hear us, the floor is yours.
Yeah, ¿me veis?
Yes, now we hear you perfectly, yes.
Vale, vamos a intentarlo.
Muy bien.
Queríamos dar las gracias a Gita y por la presentación, también el trabajo de la Oficina de Evaluación Independiente y gracias a la Secretaría por el Management Response. Valoramos mucho este trabajo. Creemos que contar con mecanismos de evaluación y aprendizaje integrados es fundamental. Todos los fondos climáticos multilaterales deberían trabajar en ello de forma coherente, de tal manera que se puedan intercambiar datos, información, conocimiento y lecciones aprendidas. Creemos que esto es un mensaje relevante. Acogemos con satisfacción los resultados y expectativas prometedoras que recoge este informe de evaluación. Valoramos positivamente que el grupo de proyectos que se ha evaluado mejora en 9 puntos porcentuales las perspectivas de sostenibilidad en comparación con el informe de evaluación de 2023. Sin embargo, observamos que la sostenibilidad del portfolio sigue siendo motivo de preocupación. Nos gustaría escuchar de la Secretaría sobre cómo piensa abordar esta cuestión, en particular lo que se refiere a la sostenibilidad financiera en el contexto actual. Además, creemos que escalar y ampliar las iniciativas de adaptación sigue siendo un reto. La evaluación identifica 5 factores que impulsan el éxito de las iniciativas y son útiles para futuras intervenciones. Y de entre ellos nos gustaría destacar uno de los mensajes, es el valor de la implicación de la comunidad, la involucración de las partes interesadas locales. Creemos que esto es muy interesante cuando una comunidad siente los proyectos como propios, continúa desarrollando las prácticas de adaptación más allá del ciclo de vida del proyecto. Y creemos que esto es algo que debemos seguir potenciando. Y finalmente, acogemos también con satisfacción el mensaje, creemos que es un mensaje potente, de que la integración de las cuestiones de género muestran una fuerte correlación con el éxito del proyecto. Entendemos que la justicia climática y en términos de género están interrelacionadas y queremos destacar esos avances positivos en la integración de la perspectiva de género y la necesidad de seguir trabajando para mejorar, en consonancia con estas conclusiones de la Oficina de Evaluación Independiente. Y estas cuestiones simplemente nos interesa que queden reflejadas adecuadamente en la nueva estrategia de programación para GEF 9. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ramón. Te escuchamos muy bien. We will now continue hearing the president with the CSO network, followed by Sandra. CSO network, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Naomi. The GEF CSO network welcomes the IEO Annual Report 2025 on the LDCF, SCCF. We note positively that 88% of projects achieve satisfactory or better outcome ratings. We're happy that the 2025 cohort demonstrated a 9 percentage point improvement in sustainability prospects compared to the previous report. Civil society and communities are at the heart of adaptation to climate change. So we had hoped there would be more information in this report on CSO engagement. We understand that there are some challenges to determine the trends in civil society engagement, particularly CSOs, Indigenous peoples, and youth in the portfolio. We hope that this can be addressed in the future. Maybe the IEO can respond on this. With regard to gender, we note that significant engagement of women in the project, in the portfolio, and also in entrepreneurship development. In future tracking, we hope that all gender categories can be included, as well as inclusion of youth or age disaggregated information. We also note the response by the Secretariat yesterday that they aim to improve the gathering of data on civil society organizations, Indigenous people and youth in the LDCF portfolio in future, but would like to hear more specifically how this will be done and whether this retroactively can be done for ongoing projects. We support the recommendation from the assessment that the GEF partnership must place emphasis on identifying and addressing implementation-related barriers to scaling up adaptation efforts under LDCF and SCCF through coordinated actions. Thus, we're happy to hear the management response that the GEF Secretariat will aim to facilitate a greater focus on the whole of society approach as part of the strategy to support scaling up and sustainability. But we would like to hear in more detail how that will be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CSO Network. Sandra, floor is yours.
Thank you, Noemi. We thank Secretariat and the Evaluation Office for a very open, candid presentation and discussion that is very much appreciated. We will not repeat what has been said, what we agree with, but we would like to highlight that we've listened carefully to the discussion on ex-post results and what it means to the Evaluation Office and to Secretariat to work on that in the future. We would also like to highlight the issue of sustainability, which is also quite clear in this reporting, came also back in the report on the discussion of the future programming. We understand that the GEF is ready to work on it, and we would consider it important that sustainability is part of the project design for the organizations, being able to not only get those results, but it would also be important for the barriers in implementation for scaling up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And that will conclude our list of speakers as far as I can see. So I will give it back to Jason and Shola. Then should we start with Gita? Okay, so Gita Rasek, floor is yours.
Thank you for the comment. And CSO Network, Faisal, we are not ignoring inclusion and civil society. We will be doing a sort of OPS in our next year's work program, which I will present next. And we will make sure we give due attention to this issue in that. And yeah, and thank you for encouraging us to proceed on our work on sustainability, because we also have to learn more about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kita. Now back to Jason and Shola for some final comments.
Great. Thank you again. Well appreciated. Specifically reflecting on the comments from Spain. Indeed, on financial sustainability, again, we are proposing a number of elements in the GEF 9 programming strategy to strengthen financial sustainability. And the points were very well heard in Paris about the importance of strengthening the articulation of these aspects together. For example, again, working with IFIs for larger catalyzing potential, as well as multilateral development banks, other financial institutions, including national development banks, strong gender and whole of society approaches, collaboration with other funds. So there's further clarity on the continuum of support, as well as importantly, approaches to country platforms to ensure a whole of government ownership of broader climate adaptation finance strategies and GEF's, the LDCF and SCCF's contribution to them. And we can point out that the LDCF and SCCF has been very engaged in country platforms, including those convened by IMF and World Bank in Madagascar and Seychelles and elsewhere. As well as, of course, private sector engagement and blended finance for sustainability and scale up. And just a reflection from the field, we continuously find that projects that are grounded in strong local ownership based on country priorities and owned by local national and local institutions have, of course, much higher likelihood of success, both in terms of sustainability and impact and scale up. So with that, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all the interventions. I don't see any further requests from the floor. I'd like to thank Jita and Rasek and Shola and Jason for all the responses. And I'd also like to invite the council to adopt draft decision that is included in document GEF/LDCF SCCF.38/E/01 for approval. I don't see any objections, and the document is so approved. Thank you. Now, we're still doing very well for time. Unless there's any requests that we do break for lunch now, I am proposing that we move on to agenda item 8. Lots of objections? No, I'm joking. So, okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the work program and budget for the IEO of the GEF under LDCF and SCCF. So I'd like to invite Jita from the GEF IEO to present document GEF/LDCF SCCF/38/E02, the financial year 26 work program and budget for the IEO of the GEF under the Least Development Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. Over to you, Jita. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So now this is us standing between you and lunch. So I will not take more than 5 minutes if you don't have too many questions. Moving on to the IEO's LDCF SCCF work program and request for fiscal year 2026. Looking ahead to next year, we will have a busy evaluation agenda for this fund. It includes the preparation of the annual evaluation report 2026, where we will synthesize, we'll have a special theme where we synthesize evidence of LDCF, SCCF projects and findings from the NBS evaluation that was presented at the GEF Council, the socioeconomic co-benefits evaluation that was presented, and the SIDS, both the Pacific and the Caribbean. We've got a lot of projects within these evaluations that are from LDCF, funded through LDCF, SECF. So we'll have a good evidence base there. We will do an LDCF, SECF program evaluation. This is sort of a mini OPS. We like doing OPSs now that we've learned how to do them. So we will be doing a mini OPS where we look at the achievements, we look at policy coherence, we look at the institutional structure, we look at the benefits of administrative agreements with the GEF Trust Fund, etc. So it will cover policy, institutional issues, as well as impacts. And this will come to you in June 2026. And finally, we are going to give attention, and thank you for the encouragement to do this. For the first time, OPS 8 will actually include quite a bit on adaptation as well. And here we will be drawing on the annual evaluation reports from 2023 to 26. We'll draw on thematic studies and all our GEF Trust Fund evaluations. To get all this done and to implement this work program, we are requesting a budget of, it's under $300,000 for FY 2026, 298,207, 171,324 from the LDCF, and 126,883 from the SECF. This budget supports a multi-year annual evaluation cycle, which is aligned with the evolving priorities of both the funds. So with that, I'm showing that the recommended council decision is to kindly approve our annual budget to conduct this work program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jita, for that presentation. I'd now like to open the floor for any questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Gita and Mr. Co-Chair. The floor is now open. I don't see anyone requesting the floor, so maybe it was very clear, the presentation. Okay, so, CSO Network, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. The CSO Network welcomes the work program and budget for the Independence Evaluation Office. GCN acknowledge the progress made by the Global Environmental Facility Independence Evaluation Office in the reporting period. GCN would like to support the great work of Independence Evaluation Office on completed number of evaluation, including the annual performance report 2025, the evaluation of GEF intervention in the international waters, as well the evaluation of the socio-economic co-benefit of GEF funding intervention. As well, GCN also support the evaluation of GEF support for nature-based solutions. And GCN understand that International Evaluation Office also completed a formative evaluation of the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and the 2025 annual evaluation report for the LDCF and the SCCF. However, we noted that the work program highlighted the issue of the whole of society approach, but GCN advised that the Independence Evaluation Office put clear on how it will work with the civil society, as well as the other groups such as indigenous people and local communities, youth and women, so as to address the issue of the whole of society approach as well as sustainability. For these few remarks, the GEF CSO Network requests that the Independence Evaluation Office have a special evaluation of the intervention and the impact linked to civil society, independence, and in indigenous people and local community, youth and women groups to address the issue of the whole of society approach, as well as how these social groups can contribute to the sustainable development. And for these few remarks, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, CSO Network. Kaunta, floor is yours.
Thank you, Naomi. And thanks a lot to the IO for the presentation of this work program, which I welcome. Apart from that, even if it's not directly connected to this work program, I would like to echo an idea I briefly discussed yesterday with Gita, because I think this request could be relevant not only for the LDCF and SCCF, but also for the GEF Trust Fund, particularly in the context of the GEF 9 replenishment and the new approach for the country engagement strategy. Concretely, I think it could be relevant for the OPS 8. Well, if the OPS 8 could integrate data on the turnover level of the OPS, of the OFPs, sorry, because the OFPs have key responsibilities. And we've seen in various reports and also in the open assessment that the capacities of the OFPs have to be strengthened regularly. This is crucial, of course. But if they change regularly, it's not ideal, of course. So it would be interesting to know the main reasons of this change. And if it's not too much work, I would appreciate if the IO could assess this over time, over the last 2 cycles, for instance. And yeah, and on what could be done to mitigate possible high figures if we happen to see this overall finding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kaunta. Anders, you have the floor.
Just to support Belgium's proposal, thanks.
Thank you, Anders. I don't see anyone else requesting the floor. So I will hand it over to Gita to respond to these comments. Gita, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. CSO Network, we last did a comprehensive evaluation of the CSO Network for OPS 7. This time, like I mentioned, we are looking at inclusion more broadly, the whole of society approach in the context of fragile and conflict affected situations, because we believe that these situations are actually these groups are more adversely impacted in such situations. Besides, GEF does a lot of work in these contexts. So you will see that coming. On the requests for OPS 8, definitely we will take a look at turnover levels of OFPs and try and get our best insights. We are looking at the strength of the partnership more broadly. And within that context, we look at the OFPs. But we will look at your specific request. I don't think it's out of bounds. We could do that. Having said that, I think I've had some offline conversations on what's possible to include in OPS 8. This is your chance to send in last requests for anything else we should do, because we are going to hunker down starting next week and start writing and analyzing so that we can produce the report in time for the second replenishment meeting, which means it has to be posted by September 3rd. So if anything comes to mind as an upshot of this meeting or the first replenishment meeting, and if we can really accommodate that within the next month and a half, please do so. So you can write to me at personal email, at the GEF email account, or to the jefieo.org address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gita. And I don't see any more requests for the floor. So on that, I invite Council to adopt draft decision that is included in the document GEF/LDCF SCCF 38/E/02 for approval. I don't see any objections, so the document is so approved. Now, before we break for lunch, because it's not quite ready yet, there's just a couple of things I wanted to go through. So the first is that we intend to cover the joint summary of co-chairs after lunch. That's already been distributed by email. So I believe we'll reconvene at 2 o'clock to consider that. And over the course of lunch, the summary of co-chairs for the LDCF and SCCF will also be distributed. So after lunch, we'll reopen the GEF and the SCCF meeting to consider those issues. I also wanted to mention that I'm sure most of you are aware, but today is World Environment Day, which we should be celebrating. Led by UNEP, it's held annually since 1973, and it's the world's largest global platform for environmental public outreach and is celebrated by millions. This year, it's been hosted by Republic of Korea with a focus on plastic pollution in the lead up to INC 5.2 in Geneva in August, which is going to be hopefully exciting and rewarding. And of course, the GEF is at the centre of this, with potentially being the financial mechanism. Over the last decade, roughly $1 billion of GEF funding has been channeled into plastics-related projects, generating 6.6 billion of co-financing, which is very significant. And these investments have prevented nearly 25 million metric tonnes of plastics from entering the waste stream, which sounds big, but it's not as big as the problem. And some interesting fun facts about plastics, of which I've used the word fun carefully. Globally, an estimated 11 million tonnes of plastics waste leak into the aquatic ecosystems, and more than 800 marine and coastal species are affected by this pollution through ingestion, entanglement, and other dangers. And I don't know if this is how to interpret this one, but microplastics in the seas now outnumber the number of stars in the galaxy. I don't know if that means that there's more stars than I thought, or there's more microplastics, but either way, it's quite interesting. And the annual social and environmental cost of plastic pollution ranges between 300 billion and 600 billion, which is, of course, a huge social cost. Do you want to say any comments, or do you want to save it this afternoon?
No, sure.
Sure.
I will not miss this opportunity to talk a little bit about what we celebrate today globally. This day is quite special to me because, as I was remembering, you told us we should, remind Council that this is our day of the year. In 2002, on this same day, in 2002, I was the Minister of Environment in Costa Rica, and that day we announced 3 things which were very important for Costa Rica. One was the first ever, and we didn't new or call it that way, the first ever GEF blended finance project. On June 5, 2002, the President and myself, we announced a $35 million project for the payments of environmental services in Costa Rica, with using just $8 million grant. That was the total STAR allocation for Costa Rica in the early 2000s, $8 million. That $8 million mobilized $32 million from the World Bank, and we did a $50 million project that really changed the Costa Rican landscape. And I'm saying literally change the Costa Rican landscape. Costa Rica was able to double, with the help of the GEF and international cooperation, double the size of the forests in the same time that the economy tripled in size, the population doubled, and we went 100% renewable energy. By the way, that same day, we passed a ban on oil and gas, open pit mining, logging on primary forests, and no bottom sea trawling. And it has that policy, no oil and gas drilling, no open pit mining, et cetera, has been kept ever since in Costa Rica. 7 different governments from 4 political parties has changed. That is why I bring a little bit of a bias on these issues that has to do with political coherence. At the end of the day, my small little country, small democracy, has proved that we can do good in terms of human development and nature conservation. And one of the things that we learned is to really generate coherence, integrating sectors, and creating the right incentives. There is not a single sentence of word in the GBF that is not what we did in Costa Rica. So I strongly believe that we have the commitment that we all agree upon in Montreal is the perfect set of goals and targets. And that is why this organization does so much in helping countries implement that very important framework. Thank you so much, and let's celebrate our day today.
So now hand back over to Naomi for the logistics over lunch and this afternoon and tomorrow.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. All right. So lunch will be served in a couple of minutes, as always, in the atrium. Also, a reminder that council members and alternates have been invited to participate in a lunch hosted by the staff. That lunch will be held as usual in the East Dining Room going downstairs to the left. Richard just mentioned it. We will circulate over lunch the joint summary of the co-chairs of the LDCF, SCCF, and we will reconvene back at 2 to allow time for people to review the summary of the co-chairs, and then we will do that promptly for the GEF Trust Fund and the LDCF, SCCF. We have tomorrow the GBFF Council. That will still be tomorrow because we have people traveling as we speak to participate in that council, and they will only be arriving this evening, so that is why we will not be able to start with that today. With that said, so enjoy your lunch, and we will reconvene back at 2. Good afternoon, Council. We are ready to start with the joint summary of the co-chairs of the GEF and the LDCF. So this is an announcement to invite people to take your seats so we can begin. Thank you.
Thanks, Noemi. Thanks, everyone, for joining us in these couple of last agenda items for today. I will reopen the 69th GEF Council meeting with agenda item number 19, which is the joint summary of the co-chairs. For this, I'll pass it over to our secretary, Noemi, who will be guiding us on the review and approval of the decisions that are in the document that was shared with everyone here. Noemi, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So we have circulated to Council the draft joint summary of the co-chairs. The version that we are going to review now is the one that I circulated earlier today, just after during the lunchtime. So this is the version that we will review. I won't go into the details of the decisions. I will just name decision by decision, and if council would have any comment, feel free to request the floor, and we will give the floor to those that requested it. So the summary of the co-chairs starts with paragraphs 1 to 7, which are basically the opening of the meeting and other interventions. Then I will start first with decision number 4, which is paragraphs 8 to 26 on the work program for the GEF Trust Fund. No one requesting the floor. So now decision number 5, which encompasses paragraph 27 to 30, GEF business plan and corporate budget for fiscal year 2026. All right. So decision number 6, GEF 8, midterm review on performance of full flexibility. Decision number 7, strength of the partnership coverage by agencies. Decision number 8, relations with conventions and other international institutions. Decision number 9, evaluation of international waters focal area and management response. Decision number 10, evaluation of socioeconomic co-benefits of GEF-funded interventions and management response. Decision number 11, evaluation of GEF support for nature-based solutions and management response. Decision number 12, fiscal year 2026, work program and budget of the Independent Evaluation Office. Decision number 13, draft amendments of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations and the GEF. Decision number 14, report of the Selection and Review Committee, assessment of CEO and Director of IEO. Decision number 15, report of Selection and Review Committee, appointment of new SRC members. Decision number 16, policy amendments to streamline the GEF project cycle. Decision number 17, other business, change of constituency. Decision number 18, other business, offer of government of Uzbekistan to host the 8th GEF Assembly. Last one, decision number 19, other business, dates for the 71st and 72nd council meetings. I see no one requesting the floor, Chair, so I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Noemi, and thanks everyone for the decision to approve the joint summary document of the co-chairs. Thank you so much. And with this, we close the 69th GEF Council meeting session. Now, let me reopen the 38th LDCF SCCF Council meeting with agenda item number 10, which is precisely the joint summary of the co-chair. For this, we'll follow the same process that we just did under the leadership and guidance of Noemi.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just like the last document, this was circulated to Council some hours ago. So I will go again one by one the decisions. So the first 3 paragraphs are the opening of the meeting, adoption of the agenda. And then starting paragraph 4, we have the first decision, which is the work program for the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund that goes from paragraph 4 to 7. Decision number 2, fiscal year 2026 administrative budget and business plan for the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. Decision number 3, fiscal year 24 annual monitoring review of the LDCF, SCCF, which has 2 paragraphs, 9 and 10. Decision number 4, progress report of the LDCF and the SCCF. Decision number 5, management response to the LDCF, SCCF annual evaluation report 2025. All right, and the last one, decision number 6, fiscal year 26 work program and budget of the Independent Evaluation Office of the GEF under the LDCF and SCCF. Okay, we have other business, closure of the meeting, and I see no one requesting the floor, Chair, so back to you.
Thank you. Thank Noemi and the council for such an executive way of approving the summary of the co-chairs. With this, we approve it and we close the 38th LDCF SACF council meeting. Thank you so much. Now, with this, we end the program for the day, but before concluding businesses, I would like to pass it to our colleague, Claus Gascon, who will be presenting something very interesting that we've been working very hard under the leadership of this council. Claude?
Thank you, Carlos. 3 years ago in August, the world lost a conservation leader, our own Gustavo Fonseca. Gustavo had spent a career working at the translation of science to action to policy and had an influence on absolutely every aspect of conservation and had shaped a lot of what the GEF is today. In honor of Gustavo's career and contributions, Council in December of 2022 approved as part of the country engagement strategy a Fonseca leadership program. Since then, we have worked nonstop to put together this program, which now has 11 partnerships, including with the universities of Cambridge, Florida, Stellenbosch, Bangalore, Lincoln, and with organizations such as Funbio, the Wildlife Conservation Society, the World Wildlife Fund, the organization Rewild, Mohammed bin Zayed Species Conservation Fund, and the Wildlife Conservation Network. To date, we have funded over 187 fellows who are either engaged in graduate studies in conservation and or fieldwork in the areas of biodiversity conservation. These fellows come from 51 countries, recipient countries of the GEF in all regions, including LDCs and SIDS. This program is unique and it is creating the next generation of conservation leaders, which hopefully a few of them will become the next Gustavo Fonsecas. I'd like to thank my colleagues Adriana, Moreira, and Nushui for their nonstop work on this over the past years. The family of Gustavo, who I know very well and I'm in contact with, would like to thank the council for this investment. I think the world also thanks the council. And we thought it appropriate that ending on a good note, which this week has been up to date, we would show a small video, a 3-minute video, just to give you an idea and allow you to meet the first Fonseca Fellows. Please enjoy.
We need to build capacity. If you just throw money at a problem, but you don't leave a legacy of capable people that have actually a place to work, you won't be able to have projects that go beyond the investment phase. You may have a certain activity for a certain period of time, but then it'll drop off.
Facing increasing global challenges requires a whole of society approach. Everyone in every sector has a role to play, especially those who will shape our future. Early career scientists are on the cutting edge of discovering innovation, applying technologies, and building capacity so we can ensure a sustainable planet for all. The Fonseca Leadership Program preserves the legacy of former GEF Director of Programs Gustavo Fonseca, who not only advanced conservation, but also built a bridge to connect science to effective policy. The Fonseca Leadership Program supports over 180 individuals around the world continuing Gustavo's legacy so we can begin the stories of new legacies of our future leaders.
Ser apoiada pelo Fonseca Leadership Program não é uma oportunidade de desenvolvimento apenas da minha carreira. É importantíssimo para a ciência brasileira.
Esse trabalho que eu tenho desenvolvido, ele contribui para a preservação e conservação da Amazônia brasileira como um todo, né? A gente entende que ao conservar e ao manejar de forma eficiente os rios, os peixes e a pesca artesanal, a gente consegue contribuir para todo o equilíbrio ecológico da Amazônia.
Being supported by the Fonseca Leadership Program is not just a career opportunity for me. It also ensures that local traditional knowledge is integrated in science to bring about a holistic approach to marine mammal conservation in Ghana.
Agregando esses dois saberes, essas duas formas de fazer ciência, a gente consegue influenciar políticas públicas e promover, de fato, uma mudança que beneficie os ambientes recifais, as comunidades que ali usam e as futuras gerações.
The Fonseca Leadership Program is just beginning. With the continued support of our partners, we can extend support directly to early career scientists, build networks, extend our scope of activities beyond biodiversity to other environmental needs, and drive forward our vision for a sustainable and protected future for all.
Thank you so much. And with this, we close today's work. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
So some final announcements. Apologies. Just tomorrow we will start again at 9 a.m. with the GBFF Council. And a message from the GBFF team here. So council members and alternates were invited to a meeting today, originally scheduled from 5 to 6 on IPLCs. So this will now be held after this meeting in the room MCC1 100. But Ben here, he can guide you. So we will have that starting now. So it's now 2:17. So maybe we can start 2:30. Okay, so but feel free to follow Ben. He will guide you to the room and see you tomorrow at 9.